Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Guys, I'm not going to be teaching you anything because you're teachers, so that you do that anyway. So I'm certainly not here to teach you anything, and I'm not here to give you any training either. In fact, many of us can already do many of the things I'm going to talk about today. But my view on giving information is that I'm just sharing what I know with my colleagues. That's my perspective. I'm not here telling you how to do it or how you shouldn't do it. I'm just giving you some basic ideas, and then inshallah, based on whatever your own situation or context, then you can think about adopting some of the ideas. So listening. Can I quickly ask anyone what your view is on the state of listening in your class at the moment? Yeah.
Yeah. First, a general statement. Without listening, we cannot speak, we cannot learn. So listening is a very important aspect of our learning. Now, in our classes, we do every day. We have in the touchstone, we have that part of listening, where the students listen to native speakers in exchanging, pieces of information from different subjects. So we do practice listening in our classes with our students.
Anyone else?
Yeah, listening is the best way and the most important way of learning, and it should come first. The first way to teach students is to make them listen.
But what do you think is the situation in the class now? I mean, in terms of, what do you think? Are the students actually learning anything at the moment?
Well, in my class, when the students listen for a general idea, then that's fine. But when they listen between the lines or listen for details, they have problems trying to gather, get the information. When questions are asked for details, if it's a general idea, like what's the subject about? Is it football, sports, or food?
Sure.
No problem.
Main point, our students don't know that we have strategies for listening. They think it's a passive activity. They just listen for something, and I tell them what to do and what's.
There's a problem, listening that they listen to not word by word, connected speech or test speech. So there's a simulation, something letters are missed or sound. You see, so they don't catch every single sound. I think.
Can I come also here? There are pauses as they read. I mean, as they listen also, and it's also the script. So I repeat what this recording was saying, and I slow down, and I try my students. I ask my students to repeat, and I say, without this base of speaking and small pauses, native speakers will not get what you want to say to them. So I try to I ask, I choose some of my students to repeat and make them speed up in their responses. You see what I mean?
Any last comment, anyone, before we move on? Okay, go ahead.
I have a very excellent, fantastic class, which is section 63 actually. And I now move with them to a higher level where we're practicing word linking, weak vowels, and assimilation, whether progressive or, So we have different levels here.
Right. Okay. So we have different views, and I'm just wondering whether some of the comments that you make partly reflect the view that we kind of depict in the next picture, which is that basically nothing's really working. I mean, we have. I'm just wondering, maybe I don't know if I put it, given an extreme position, but in terms of how and whether the students are actually learning anything or developing the listening skill, we're not really sure about that at the moment. So, a saying I came across, you can have a look at it, about the importance of listening. According to this this saying, because we have 2 ears, that means maybe we should be listening twice as much as we speak. But in fact, last week, and I'm sure that you remember, like in one of the lessons, we were teaching the word ache. So we came across toothache, stomachache, headache. But I'm sure that you agree with me, I've never come across the term tongue ache.
Toothache.
Yeah, but I mean tongue, like, you know, we speak forever, we could speak 24/7 and our tongues would never ache. So, interesting, you know, kind of like, opposite point of view, you know, some people might think maybe we're meant to speak a lot. So, why, I mean, do you think listening is important as a skill? Or how important is it compared to the others?
I mean, it's very important. In terms of listening, I mean, we're teaching English, but in general, in any language, a person absorbs more from listening better than speaking. I mean, even a person can comprehend more from listening and understanding more than speaking. A person can understand a whole conversation but cannot respond, maybe because of lack of vocabulary. So listening is very important in terms of pronunciation, in terms of understanding the usage of the language, in terms of many things. I mean.
Okay, so what if we think about a situation? Sorry, you were going to say something.
I just want to say that listening is an input, let's say, input skill.
Right.
And even babies or children, you know, have to listen before them to speak. So it comes first. Right?
Okay.
Well, I
I
hear.
agree.
I'm sorry.
Go for it.
Sorry.
Yeah, we have to distinguish between, differentiate between listening and hearing. Okay. When we listen, when we let our students listen, we should assist their listening. I mean, some students, they are just passive listeners. Okay? So you hear something, but sometimes you don't think of it. Okay? You hear sounds, but when you say listening, it means that they should understand.
Right, but what if we couldn't hear? How do you think that would impact on our other skills?
Yeah.
If we couldn't hear, I mean, you've made a differentiation, listening and hearing.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. But what if we couldn't hear? What if people couldn't hear? How would that have, and would that impact on the other skills?
Yes, of course. Especially speaking skills.
Right.
So
Okay.
it will result in wrong or erroneous pronunciation.
Yes?
There, in education, there is something that's called the silent period.
Right.
We allow it to the first language speakers, our kids, but sometimes we don't allow it for the second language speakers. In the beginning, there has to be a period of silence where there's input. Okay? And then at the later stage, when they are able to,
Process.
then we can hear them, you know, start uttering words, saying words.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, most of you have summed up what I was going to say anyway, which is that, like, and Hussein, I think I agree with, which is that listening is really one of the most important skills, and in a way it's odd that listening in terms of like our knowledge of how to teach listening or the way that the books present listening, it's almost as if it's kind of like the skill left behind, the last element. So it creates a real problem, and I'm sure that you know many friends, I know people, like whenever we talk about grammar, people get emotional. They have arguments. You know, people have fights, you know, over grammar. No, it should be nature. No, it should be nurture. We do it this way, we do it that way. And there's a lot of excitement, a lot of passion. But the question maybe I'd like to ask you is, do you have any passion for listening? I mean, many of us have a passion for writing, some of us for reading, some of us for speaking, but very rarely do we talk about listening. So I guess that was one of the reasons why I thought I'd maybe introduce the subject, Naveed.
I think it's because when Hussein mentioned that listening is an input skill. It's a skill that you don't need to give any output. So it's easy. It's the easiest skill. Whenever you ask the students which skill they find the easiest, they will say listening, because they don't have to do anything. And everyone listens. When a teacher is teaching in the class, all the students are listening. So they're listening to the listening skill is there all the time. You know,
But if there's no output, does that mean and I don't want to say too much, I'll let my colleagues say something. Yes?
If we look at the exam results, we actually see that students lose marks mostly through listening. When they do the listening part,
Right.
which is the most difficult part for them.
Okay, anyone else?
I mean, commenting on Muhammad first, I think, if students listen without a purpose, and this is the purpose, I'm talking about the purpose. The purpose is very important. If they listen without a purpose, it becomes hearing, right? Even if students are listening to you in the class, they will listen to understand with a purpose. And this is very important.
So I think in a way, if I can add to what Naveed was saying, which is that, like, yes, there doesn't apparently seem to be a purpose, which is what you were saying. But in reality, in real life, when we listen, what we hear then, or what we listen then, results in an action from us of some kind. So in terms of real life, there's always, or usually, some kind of action or reaction to listening, and yet in class, maybe that element has not been incorporated in the books, especially because in reality, all of us, mashallah, are quite creative. I mean, teachers are creative, full stop. But because we're guided by books, maybe they kind of prevent us or discourage us or stop us from taking steps that would make listening, result in some kind of output. So I've just written a couple of issues there. I'm sure many of you have got different points of views on what the possible issues are. But I just also want to add another issue, a slightly side issue, but it relates to listening, which is time. And we're going to go into this discussion maybe later, but I've always thought of teachers as being artists. And what I mean is that, like, to be a teacher, you need to have a creative mind. In our class, we're trying to get something out of our students, and sometimes what books do, they kind of dull our creativity. And very often, as in most courses, and especially large courses like ours, where we have 5,000 to 6,000 students, we are under pressure to go through content. We receive a course outline and so forth, and our concern is, am I going to complete these pages? What am I going to do? So I'm just going to discuss this later, because it may relate to lesson planning. But now, I can see some of the guys sleeping, and actually I measure the success of my teaching and training by the number of people who are sleeping usually. So I can see about 2 or 3 slow, people sort of like closing their eyes. So what I'm going to do is I want to introduce you. You are the students of Section X. Okay? And I am the teacher of Section X. So basically, because you're students, now you have to take on the persona of students. And I'm going to be asking you, not ordering, I'm going to be asking you to do a few things, because whatever activity I have in mind, I don't want to explain it. I want you to do it. I want you to put yourself in the position of the student. Okay, so how many students have we got? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 21. So what I'd like to do is I'd like you to split you into 4 groups. So maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe you could sit together over there. Yeah, get together, guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe you can sit over there. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. 6 of you sit together. Okay. So try and sit together, everyone. Okay, I'm going to give you something. Hand this out to each other. I was saying you're welcome to take part in it. You're welcome to. No problem, inshallah. Okay. If you've got any extra sheets, guys, just let me know, yeah? Okay, can you just... any extra sheets? Thank you. Anyone else? Extra sheets? Have you got any extra sheets? No. Have you got any extra sheets? Extra sheets, anyone? Have you got an extra sheet? Right, now, I don't want to embarrass anyone, but there's a question I always ask my students in class: do you have a pencil or a pen?
Yeah.
If you don't, just tell me or hint. Okay.
So you've got an
But
iPhone.
I got some boxes of pencils actually, just in case. There you go, one for you. Please return it. This is the property of Jamia Taiba.
Teacher.
Yes.
What is that?
Oh, there you go. I always respond to that, you know. Teacher. Anyone else? Yes.
I have
Pen is okay.
Pen is okay.
Do we get reimbursed?
Do we get reimbursed for working?
Pen's no problem. If you have a pen, I have no problem with you writing with a pen. Okay? Okay, so these, okay, there you go. So I just want to quickly explain the purpose of this piece of paper. There are two sides. If you look at this is group listening activity sheet. Okay, this is the side you're going to use now. Okay? And then after the activity, I'm going to ask you to look at this sheet called activity reflection. Okay? So first I want you to have a look at this activity sheet, because now we are going to do the activity, and I'll explain what it is. I am going to play an audio clip from Touchstone. Okay? It's 3 minutes long, 3 minutes and about 10 seconds. I'm going to play it twice. This is what your job is. Your job is to listen and write down some information that you hear. Anything. Okay? And I will play the audio twice. And after I play the audio twice, it will be your job to create questions based on the information that you've put down. Now, there are 4 groups, but what I want you to do is I want you to try and create as many questions as you can, because there's a possibility that someone from another group may have also created the same question. Okay? Because the way it's going to work is that I'm going to give you 5 minutes after the audio clip to get your questions together. Okay? Just to converse with your colleagues, just check what questions they have. Alright? And then, what happens after that? I'm going to start, and I'm going to give you names. Group A, B, C, and D. I'm going to use the whiteboard, and I'm going to give you points. This is what happens. 1, you ask a question. Yes? And anyone from any other group who puts their hand up first has the right to answer that question. Okay? For asking the question correctly, and what I mean correctly is that sometimes in class, students write a question, but they don't actually know the answer to their own question. Okay? So you need to ask the question for which you know the answer. You get 1 point for that. You need to speak clearly. You get 1 point for that. For just asking the question, you get 2 points. The person who answers needs to speak clearly and give the correct answer. You get 2 points for that. If the person answering gets the question wrong, they still get 1 point if it's clear. But no one else can answer that question. And the reason is because I have a finite audio clip, we don't want to use up all the questions. So that means you've got to be fast to put your hand up and answer the question. If the guy asking the question doesn't speak clearly, we don't hear him, then all the other groups get a point for it. Okay? So that's the way that it kind of works. I don't want to give you too much more information. Oh, one more thing. The person who asks a question, once he's asked the question, and then another person asks a question, that person cannot speak. Because now the other group members have to answer. Okay, you've got to get the other group members, they have to answer the question. And you have to answer clearly. Okay, so once you've answered, if someone gave a question, asked a question, answered a question, then after that you've got 3 people left, and one of those 3 will have to ask the next question. It's a lot of information I've given you, but actually in class what I do is I just introduce it as we keep going. So even during the lesson or during the activity, if you're not sure, ask teacher, you know, what about this? And also, it's possible that I might not remember that Abdul Rauf asked a question. And Abdul Rauf might try and answer, and you can say, look, teacher, Abdul Rauf asked the question. And I say, yeah, you're right. So then I give everyone a mark for that. So what we'll do is let's start the activity. and it's an activity from Touchstone. Any questions?
Will you repeat the
Just listen and write notes. That's the first part. Okay? Bismillah. So we're going to play it. Sorry?
Time is over.
So, guys,
Yes.
can we answer our question from our own groups?
No. That's a good question, but no, you can't.
So get 2 points for that.
But the thing is that so if someone can't answer the question, we're going to ask you anyway, what's the answer? Sorry?
Put our hand up. You have a question.
I'll just say, why don't you join that group over there, yeah? Okay? So anyway, if there are any problems, not a problem in the real activity, this always happens, okay? And by the way, if someone is asking a question and the other guys are talking, they get a -1. Okay? So let's go for it. By the way, switch your mobile phones off, otherwise I'll have to give it to Sharif. Okay? Thank you. Bismillah, let's go for it.
Page 115, Lesson D. How they look. 1. Listening. Next year's fashions. Listen to a fashion editor answer questions about the styles for next year. Complete the chart. Discuss with a partner.
Time of year when you organize your closets and give away last season's clothes. To help you, we have with us on today's show fashion editor Tara Zing from Fashion World magazine. Tara, what can we look forward to for next year's fashions? I mean, what's the new look? And women is going to be very different next year. Men are going to have a very casual look, but stylish too. So, casual but stylish? Yes. And for women? For women, the look is going to be very expensive. A very expensive look. Designer everything. From clothes to designer clothes for women? Yes. Women are going to be in long skirts and tops, in soft colors like pink, yellow, and pale green. And low heel shoes again. Low heels are back. Okay. And how about the guys? Well, it's pants for men, of course, but dress pants. No jackets? That's right. Not jackets, but sweaters, to go with the casual look. And for men, I think we're going to see very bright colors, oranges and reds, bright blues. And what about accessories? Well, believe it or not, for men, big shoulder bags are going to be bags? No, not quite. More like small briefcases, so men can carry all those gadgets around. Electronic organizers, cell phones, that kind of thing. Really? Interesting. So the fashionable guys are going to be the ones carrying shoulder bags. Just a little jewelry. Jewelry never went out of style, did it? No. But this year, it's just a few very expensive pieces. And again, designer jewelry. To add to the expensive look. Designer watches are going to be popular. And pearls. Nothing fake. The real thing, huh?
Okay guys, I'm going to play once again, but before I do that, I'm just going to clean the CD against my stomach. Move it forward.
And then use the noise, you know?
Oh, it's you. Tell the...
Just the
Is it too noisy?
Yeah, the tune.
Turn it down.
Okay. Just stop.
Page 115, Lesson D. How they look. 1. Listening. Next year's fashions. Listen to a fashion editor answer questions about the styles for next year. Complete the chart. Discuss with a partner.
It's fashion season again. That time of year when you organize your closets and give away last season's clothes. To help you, we have with us on today's show fashion editor Tara Zing from Fashion World magazine. Tara, what can we look forward to for next year's fashions? I mean, what's the new look going to be? Well, I I think the look for men and women is going to be very different next year. Men are going to have a very casual look, but stylish too. So, casual but stylish? Yes. And for women? For women, the look is going to be very expensive. A very expensive look. Designer everything. From clothes to designer clothes for women? Yes. Women are going to be in long skirts and tops, in soft colors like pink, yellow, and pale green. And low heel shoes again. Low heels are back. Okay. And how about the guys? Well, it's pants for men, of course. But dress pants, that's right. Not jackets, but sweaters. To go with the casual look. And for men, I think we're going to see very bright colors. Oranges and reds, bright blues. And what about accessories? Well, believe it or not, for men, big shoulder bags are going to be like women's shoulder bags? No, not quite. More like small briefcases, so men can carry all those gadgets around. Electronic organizers, cell phones, that kind of thing. Really? Interesting. So the fashionable guys are going to be the ones carrying shoulder bags. Uh-huh. And for women's accessories, well, just a little jewelry. Jewelry never went out of style, did it? No. But this year, it's just a few very expensive pieces. And again, designer jewelry, to add to the expensive look. Designer watches are going to be popular, and pearls. Nothing fake. The real thing, huh?
Okay guys, you have 5 minutes to write your questions. Do it now. You can compare with your colleagues, etc.
Together, each.
Sorry?
Together, the group, right?
Well, I mean, just write. You can write your own questions if you want, and you can then just let the others know. Or you can do it together, no problem.
How about all right? One set of questions.
All right.
Four minutes, guys, 4 minutes. Make sure you know the answer to your question. Don't ask a question without knowing the answer.
For next year.
Yeah. By the way, guys, the others might overhear you, yes? You've got to be careful. Yeah? You've got to be very secret. Thank you.
What if you
Three minutes.
What kind of clock are you using, man?
It's the one for people who are older students. Two minutes. 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
is the topic? We can answer the topic of the recording. What is the topic? What do people do? What's the answer? But you know, when you look, when they look for, then you look. Get rid of the old.
1 minute.
They talked about basically they looked about
Yeah,
30 seconds. Done? We should just check maybe with your teammates what questions they've got on. I'm just going to go first or maybe 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you, boys. I hope you don't mind me calling you boys. Right, okay. Okay, guys, boys. Right, silence.
some people are writing. I'm still writing.
Silence. A, B, C.
Mine is already.
Almost got a -1 group C. You're D. Okay. Well, okay, guys, so.
Someone's writing.
Writing is not a problem writing. I think the main thing is not to make noise so that we can then hear the questions. Okay, so group A, please start. And you can only ask the question once. No one can ask for repetition. Okay, you can't ask for repetition, so that means you need to listen.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, ask which group? Any group?
Yeah, but make sure it's loud and clear.
Okay, what's the name of the fashion editor? Yeah.
Yes.
It's Terry Zain. Tara.
Wait.
Tara Zain.
Is that correct?
He said Terry.
Yeah, no, that's Tara.
Guys, 1 moment. Is that correct?
That's correct.
What's the answer? What's her name?
Tara Zain, yeah.
Tara Zain. Okay, so 1 minute, guys. The rule is that once I've chosen someone, then everyone else is out, because on purpose I've said only he can say the question only once, because it means you've got to listen. If you don't listen, then you can't quite get the question. So it's really important. So anyway, well done. Group A, 1 mark for asking the correct question because Naveed knew the answer. And also 1 point because he said it clearly. This is something you've got to really remember, because there's a danger you might be speaking to yourself. Remember, your voice has to go out to everyone. And of course, Group D, Muhammad Hussaini, well done. 2 marks to them. Well done. Okay, so Group B.
Yes. What's the topic about?
Muhammad Hussaini?
Fashion for the next season.
Correct.
No.
Well done.
For the next year.
No, the next season. Next year's fashion.
Next year.
Next year.
1 second.
They're talking about next year.
The title is How They Look. That's
No.
But I think
Topic.
it's acceptable. Most people's answer is acceptable, I would say.
He's the.
What's your
Okay, so
You don't have to be
Right.
right. You don't have to be rigid. Yes?
Well, remember, we're students now, not teachers. Okay, Group C. Group C.
What articles of clothing will men and women wear?
Yes, Naveed?
Okay, for men, it's pants, no jackets, sweaters. For women, it's skirts, high heel shoes, and yeah.
1 minute, sorry. 1 minute, no, sorry, is that correct?
No.
Okay, please give us the answer.
Men will wear dress pants and sweaters.
We said that.
I said pants as well.
Yes.
Dress pants.
Women will wear long skirts and tops and no heels.
Okay, so one minute, guys. So Group A gets nothing, but Group C gets 3 marks, and I'll explain why. He asked the question correctly because he knew the answer. All right. He also said it clearly, and obviously you guys didn't get it right, so they get the mark for that. Because like Abdullah gave us the full answer, so you get 3 for that. So actually you get more marks if the other person or if the other group doesn't get it right.
Yeah, but Sahih, did he give the full answers?
He did.
No. Okay, what about the bags, the shoulder bags?
Oh, the clothes they wear.
Clothing.
Yeah, okay. Accessories.
That's accessories.
That's clothing.
Listen. Sorry, be so teacher-like. But articles of clothing. Okay, thank you. Well done. Group D.
He didn't say the colours.
Hold on. Group A -1. Muhammad Ali talking. Group D.
Okay, what company does she work for? What company does
Wrong answers, not
Tira work for?
Naveed.
It's a magazine called Fashion World Magazine. Fashion World Magazine.
Is that correct?
Who's she, by the way?
Excuse me. Is that correct? Who asked?
Yeah,
Oh, sorry. Is that correct?
Yes.
Great. So, Group D 1-2 and Group A 1-2. Well done. So Group A seems slightly strong.
Wait a minute, it's not a company.
Yeah, it's a
Okay. Now, what was your question? Can you repeat your question?
What company?
Does she work for?
And who is she, by the way? Because there were 2 words.
Yeah. So the question is what?
It's understood.
It's a company.
I think that you can say that the company is the fashion magazine.
Yeah.
Because that's the information that we have. So,
Who was the interviewer?
well, the interviewer was the interviewer who works for the company. Anyway, let's carry on. Okay. Group A. Hold on. Group B -1. Group B -1. Group B -1 again. Okay.
What colors are going to be popular for men and women next year?
Here. No one was saying?
Yeah, we have like soft colors for women, green, pink, and bright colors for men, oranges, blue, and reds.
Mr. Abdurrahman, is that correct?
Yeah, yellow was not mentioned. Pink, yellow,
Bright,
and pale green.
Pale green.
Right, so yellow and pale green was not mentioned, yeah? So that means Group A get 3 marks. 1, 2, 3, and
Thank you,
I feel
guys.
a bit of rahmah, so I'm going to take off the -1. Group B. And I don't want to. I want to encourage the students. I don't want to deflate you.
Not minus, brother.
Group A, because you're doing quite well, I think there's no problem with you having -1. Questions? Any questions?
Yes.
Quickly.
What about
Can we
us?
answer more than one time? I thought each person could only speak once.
Yes.
Oh, true.
No, hold on a second. Hold on. Wait. Yeah. If you've asked a question, if you've answered, you can't do something a 3rd time.
3 times.
Muhammad Hussein, he's answered all of them.
He's answered.
And Naveed. Yes.
I asked and answered.
No, but the thing is, I think Mohammed Saleem, thank you very much, because I think that's also part of the role of the student, is to help the teacher. So I think
He asked and answered one question, one answer.
I asked and answered.
that was it.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay then. So what's the problem? Okay.
I answered the question.
Okay, guys, remember, those of you who have not spoken, you now need to speak. We need to hear your voices. Okay, so Group B, your question.
What new accessory will men have?
Shoulder bag.
Shoulder pads now. Hold on a second. One moment. Wait, don't give me the answer. Don't give the answer. Stop. because only one person is allowed to respond. So they've already done it. So put your hand down. Oh, I'm sorry. Now there are a couple of issues. Abdul Rauf has asked a question before, and he answered. Okay? So we can't give them the mark. Even though that was right. So, what that means...
Hold on a second, brother. I asked the question when they answered wrong. I corrected them. But I didn't answer any questions before.
Yeah. Yes, an answer.
You just answered now.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
So you asked a question before.
Yeah, you can ask an answer.
But once you ask a question, you can't provide an answer.
You said that as we go.
So, no, they don't
You said you can ask an answer.
Okay. This is what I'm going to do. And I think you understand my point, which is that students who do not speak need to speak. Once you've spoken, that's it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give all the other groups an extra mark because Abdul Rauf spoke. I'm sorry, that's the rule, okay? I'm the boss here. Sorry,
you're correct when you said you were going to make the rules as we go.
Exactly, yes, I made the rules. Okay, so now Group C, question.
Yeah, they should like keep watching.
What accessories would men use?
Yes.
Shoulder bag.
Shoulder bag. Cases.
Shoulder bag for men.
Yeah, cases to keep.
Yeah, case to give guys.
Is that correct, Father?
Accessories, not
Well, man, is that correct? To give cell phones and stuff?
Yeah. Organizers. To give organizers and cell phones and stuff. No.
So the accessory is big.
It's one.
Good, okay. Thank you. So 1, 2, 1, 2. Now, boys, men, I'm going to. Yes, you have a question.
We didn't get 2 points.
You don't get 2 points.
Subtracting the question and.
Thank you. All right, that is it. Okay. There you go. Now, it's interesting. It's amazing. Even we act like students. That's not a bad thing. It's humanity. You know the way we are. It's the way it is. Okay. So what we're going to do is that I'm going to stop the activity, and what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to have a look at this activity reflection. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Just write some views to those questions, and just for your information, my idea is to collect what you've written, compile it, and then resend it to everyone. Okay? So I want you, I don't mind being be critical, that's good, because there may be things that I have not thought of, and there are many things that you may know that you could add whatever. Please feel free to write what you need, because this is a learning activity. We're here to learn, all right, and I'm here to learn from you, and it's the other way around as well. Okay, so I encourage you to be honest and be critical and analytical and think about what we've just done. Okay, and then inshallah we will share that with each other after a few minutes. got about 3 minutes. Whose mobile phone is that?
Mine.
Switch it off, guys. Keep it on silent. Just joking. Two minutes.
So yeah, what time do we start? 11:15 or 11:20? 11:20.
45 minutes. 45 minutes.
You have about a minute, everybody.
I remember something, unfortunately you didn't warm up before doing this point.
Put that down.
No, I know.
You did?
Yes. I thought we were confused.
I know.
We should have
That's why I want you to write that down. I left it out on purpose. You want to take it?
No, guys, hold on to it. About 30 seconds. Everybody.
No, he wants it. I actually put down the phone. I'm expecting that. You said he wants to say it.
Yeah, but not at the end, because I want you to kind of, because there are points that we're going to discuss, and I'm sure that some of the points others may have made, you may have a slightly different one. Okay, guys, thank you very much. So, let's start. But just before we start discussing, because I wanted to give you 5 minutes to think about it, but whilst we let the, you kind of absorb what you've written, I just want to quickly give you some background and some extra information. So, do you have a question?
No.
Okay, so basically, I want to just mention Birmingham, because that's where I was teaching last year. I was teaching basically students who are about to go into the business school to do their MBAs and MSCs in finance and so forth. And all the students were basically advanced students. They all had IELTS 6 or above. But the thing is that the business school doesn't accept IELTS, because IELTS, the written is only about an A4 sheet, or a sheet of, it's about 300 to 400 words. And when you go to business school, you start writing 2,000 word assignments with referencing, and so we had to teach them a lot of things. So during the teacher orientation, they said that the listening was very boring, and that stuck in my mind. And basically in the listening, what we did is that we had CDs of recorded lectures. So we had real lectures from the business school, and each lecture was about 60 minutes, 75 minutes long, and the lectures are totally different from the ELC, and the ELC were interactive. We're trying to run around, do all kinds of things, but a lecture is just a talk, and you're sitting there quietly. And many of the students were Chinese, from Hong Kong, the Arab world, some from Europe, South America, and many of them, even culturally, they're a bit shy, and so the thing is that I felt that putting on a CD didn't really achieve much. I didn't see the point, and actually it was a 2-hour lesson, and I didn't see the point of going through the lesson. We had a pre-listening activity, then listening and post, but I thought this was a waste of time, so I decided to cut the video into 5-minute chunks. So what I basically did is I split the students into groups who are, mashallah, some of them had worked for 10 years, they were very experienced people, and I decided to split the video into 5-minute chunks, and effectively we were doing more or less what we were doing here, except I was asking them to use the language of caution when they were speaking, because they were going into business, and we were teaching them how to communicate in a business environment, which meant that they needed to use not just formal language, but language that was cautious, where we didn't say things like, you must do this or you should do this. We used words like, well, we would suggest that you consider, it was a different kind of scenario. So that 5-minute session seemed to work, And I was a little reluctant about using it here until after a few months I thought, well, let's give it a go with the material we've got with Touchstone. I used it last few weeks, and the students, mashallah, were very positive. And just to give you one other example, I used Unit 5 Lesson A, one of the dialogues. Typically, all the Lesson A's have got a dialogue, but this applies to all books. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be Touchstone. And I got the students to individually just sit there. I said, look, we're going to listen to this. I want you to write questions. So all the students wrote questions, and then I wrote all of their questions on the whiteboard. So we managed to get about 15, 16 questions, and then we answered them correctly. So that was a different way of doing the activity. Now, so that's a bit of background, a bit of extra information. But now the really interesting part is our discussion. And just before we could start the discussion, think of the activity as a skeleton. I made some rules, that is the meat, and then I made up a reward system or a penalty system. But if you think of the activity as a skeleton, then actually you can add anything you want to it. You know, what skill do you want them to, you know, like learn or use, and so we'll leave it up. So now let's carry on. So Nick, first question. Do you think this activity is beneficial? If so, how? Anyone? Yeah, Faris.
Yes, very sound. It's very beneficial in two ways. First, it pushes the student to listen carefully, and then it pushes them to listen to each other, so that they're listening twice.
Good.
Yeah, it is very, it's a lot of fun first. It motivates the students to participate and even compete with classmates.
Anyone else? Yeah.
Yeah, it was very interactive between the students and the teacher, so not only was it a listening activity, but it turned out to be even a discussion and speaking activity at the same time.
Well, this is a part where the students is limited to how many questions they can ask or answer. That gives a chance to the weaker students to participate. So that was...
Yeah, it's okay that students may not have the ability to write or take notes during listening.
Okay, good. Well, we can do with that on the next, because we're talking about negatives next. Any other point on the benefits?
Yeah, yes, it is useful, of course. It gives students the chance to listen to and use new vocab in useful sentences, and makes teacher more aware of his students' needs.
Teacher just control his classroom and manages the activities going on.
It forces the teacher to think about directions, giving directions, and how to clearly give directions so that everybody can understand.
Good, okay, by the way guys, this was Unit 11, and I on purpose chose an audio clip you hadn't heard, because I felt that in a way you had to be in the position of the student. I was thinking about choosing an audio clip from Units 1 to 5, I thought you'd be familiar with it, so on purpose I decided to choose a Unit 11 clip. So because the chances are most of you have probably not heard it, and because you're coming across new information for the first time, it might give you an appreciation of what the student situation is. Next part, what would you say are the possible negatives? Hussein Khwaja.
Yeah, I'm talking about taking notes, difficulty on the part of the student. The too much instruction for the exercise, the students, the students will be confused about that, and the warming up. There is no warming up for the activity.
Okay, and I actually left the warming up out on purpose. Partly it was time. It was time. That was the reason I left it out, and I was looking for that point that you just made, that's good. It's a pre-listening. Where's the pre-listening? Yes.
The only possible negative, I think, is it's time-consuming.
Yeah. Right.
We need to abide by the pacing schedule. And sometimes we have similar activities, but we can't do.
Well, I'll inshallah answer the lesson planning, because that's actually one of the slides. Yes, sir.
I think there was too much instruction about the strategies, So if I put myself in the shoes of them, I got distracted, because you talk much about do this and do this. See, maybe for the weak students.
Okay.
Many, things to do.
Another point is many students might be left inactive because if they don't take the initiative, you can't force them to take part. Unlike real listening tasks where you can ask the students to take part.
Sure.
Like Mr. Hussein said, it draws on other skills, just like grammar and writing. So some students might be willing to take part, but they lack the skills to write a grammatical question.
Sure.
Yeah. Also, yeah.
So I think in terms of timing, this was the thing, you see. I think in terms of timing, you've got to be able to judge whether your students are up to this task. And I think about, with regards to like being an authentic listening task, I think the problem is that because we're trying to simulate real situations, so in this situation, maybe we need a task, even though it's artificial or contrived. Anyone else? Naveed?
I think some of the points were made about too many instructions, and it's too complicated for the students, and also for them to produce questions which are clear and correct. At this level, they can't do that. So this,
Well, I mean, the thing is that my objective is not that they write questions clearly or correctly, because actually part of it's trying. It's a situation where you start from a particular point, and then slowly with experience they get better. So if, for example, we were practicing W8 type questions, writing down those kinds of questions, then with experience and practice, the students would build up the skill. So I would never expect students to be perfect. But I mean, that's a good point, though. And with regards to
what I'm saying is these activities, you tried it on us, okay? And the results are good, it's fun, and everyone's interacting. But you can't take this line to the classroom and expect the same results. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well,
you're going to have to tailor it for them.
I mean, when I tried the first time, all I said was that the person who answers it correctly gets a point. That's how I did it. I kept it simple. Then, once the students understood it, then I started adding other parts to it. So you could say more or less that I kind of gave you a product that was already in the process. It wasn't actually the beginning, it wasn't the start. It was something that the students had already had the experience of going through this situation. So every week I kind of added an extra task. But I understand, I agree totally about the instructions. Too many instructions, if they confuse us, then of course.
I don't know. I think the only negative thing I found here is I think this game was designed for, let's say, fast learner students. So our slow learner students, they won't get participation much as fast learner.
Well, I mean, I always do a survey of my students, and I think my relationship is such that I think that they don't mind telling me honestly what they think. And mashallah, I had good feedback because I was asking
because
them.
when you should first, who knows the answer, say, raise his hand. So the first learner will say, reap all the.
But to deal with that, what I did is I said that once you ask the question, then you can't ask again and you can't answer. Then you have to give it to the other two. So that was one way I tried to deal with it. So that's good, a lot of interesting and useful feedback. So how would you vary the activity? Any ideas? Yeah, others here.
I think about the Brigham University, it would be better to cut it into chunks. This audio file, too much information about colors, accessories. So if you look as chunks, for example, for men and for guys.
Right, but actually that is from Touchstone.
I know.
So, but okay, interesting. You could even break that into small chunks.
I would make the students that have spoken move from the group.
How would you manage that in class? Because I'm just thinking that as it is, it can be a task in itself trying to get people to get up, get into groups. They're sitting there, and then how would you manage that if you're going to then ask students to move away? Wouldn't that mean maybe, it's just something to think about.
I sometimes ask students to stand up, and whoever speaks can sit down.
Right. What's the benefit of that? So you're saying everyone stands up?
Yeah, I push them to speak so that they want to sit.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I would give students some guided questions to guide their listening or something like that, because it's a matter of memorizing. It's not listening, by the way. When you hear a long conversation, it's a matter of memorizing, and you are experiment their memory.
Well, actually, I wouldn't say the word memorizing. I would say remembering, because in reality, even when we were or our students and we're in a lecture, we're writing notes, and actually the notes is kind of helping us remember the key. We're putting the key. So it's not about memorizing. I would say it's more remembering, and I think that I think one of the benefits of listening and taking notes is that kind of, we're trying to simulate the real environment that they'll probably be in when they go into the faculty.
Maybe I'll change the activity after I've finished what we have done. And the students have written some outlines. I would ask them to make like a kind of paragraph, rewrite what they have already listened to.
Maybe the teacher can ask the questions, and only one student's allowed to answer. If he can't answer again, maybe until they've all gone live again.
Sure.
So the teacher can just ask the questions, and so the students just answer, make it easier for our students. For them to ask a question and also get another student to answer is difficult. So teacher just asks them a question, and then whoever answers.
Well, normally the person who asks the question is expected to answer. But yeah, that's a fair point. I'll take that on board, Charlie.
I wish there was a way to show videos of the conversation, not only make students listen, so that students can relate the issues like facial expressions and body language to what they listen to.
I think in that sense, I think we have to probably provide it ourselves. And what I've done is actually I've videoed some of my students, and they quite liked, looking at themselves. There was another point I was going to make, but it's escaped my mind. But let's carry on. Are there any other points you'd like to make, maybe? Okay, so that's good, inshallah. So let's just go through. I'm not going to go through these, but as you know, the activity itself is skeleton. By the way, I haven't finished yet. You have 5 minutes yet. But if you have to go, please do. Okay. So, no problem, inshallah. Thank you. So lesson planning. I was actually one of the most outspoken critics of Touchstone, and I still am actually. But what I like about it is the lessons. I find that the lessons are you can fit them into the 2-hour sessions we have very easily. And what I tend to do, and I think it's just something for you to think about, is that I have a look at the lesson and I decide to prioritize. That's what I tend to do. I'm going to spend less time on this because maybe they've already covered the grammar, they're already familiar with the patterns. Maybe there are exercises they can do at home. And although it might have looked like there was a time issue here, in reality, this is a training session. I spoke for about 10 or so minutes. Then we went into the activity, and we're still continuing. So it looks like it's an issue of time. But if you take one of the dialogues from any of the lessons, if you feel it appropriate, then you can deal with this activity within 25 minutes. You just have to manage it correctly, execute, and you can do it. So my experience so far has been that I've been able to complete or almost complete a lesson. In fact, my teaching style is that I don't necessarily feel that I need to complete the lesson in these 2 sessions. If there's a little bit left, I'll cover it in the next one, but then I'll speed up. So I think that Touchstone gives us, enough flexibility for us to be able to fit this in. I mean, I would suggest that have a go, try it once. But I think, practice makes perfect. And inshallah, any points on about, the lesson planning that I talked about?
I think lesson C, you always have some time, extra time in lesson C.
Right.
Okay. Right? Okay. But the other lessons, I think.
Well, I mean, lesson A, I used the lesson A with my students. It was 1 hour, 20 minutes. 1 minute, 20 seconds. And we made it into quite a nice little exercise. But the main thing is that I think you need to try yourself. So, this is where we are at the moment. So what we want to do is we want to go to the next stage, which is that. Okay? Before I close, are there any last minute questions? Yeah. All time to go. Thank you very much. Thank you. And if I can